In the heart of the omniverse, where the fabric of existence weaves together the threads of infinite possibility, lies IntraZone, a boundless realm that defies the very notion of edges or endings. This is no mere world, no finite planet spinning in the void. IntraZone is the nexus, the eternal core from which all else radiates. The omniverse itself is a colossal tapestry composed of 4 grand multiverses, each a swirling vortex of uncountable realities. Together, these 4 multiverses form the omniverse's vast expanse, a symphony of chaos and order, where every conceivable variation of reality plays out in perpetual harmony and discord. Yet at the center of this incomprehensible vastness stands IntraZone, the immovable anchor stretching infinitely in every direction, upward into the skies, downward into abyssal chasms, and outwards across horizons that seem to go on forever. It is a land without borders, a plane where the laws of physics and nature bend to the will of its inhabitants, and only a fraction of its infinite expanse has been charted by even the most skilled of explorers. At the pulsating core of IntraZone sprawls its capital, Neo-Rwanda, a megacity of staggering scale. Spanning thousands of miles in every direction, it is a labyrinthine metropolis where architecture fuses the mundane with the arcane, the ancient with the futuristic. Towering spires of glass and crystal reach the skies, their surfaces etched with glowing runes that channel magical ley lines, powering the vast city. Streets wind like veins through the districts that blend near seamlessly into each other. Encircling Neo-Rwanda like a jagged pair of ass lips are the outskirts, a ring of smaller settlements that serve as the lifeblood of the capital, feeding it with resources, trade, and labor. These hamlets and villages scattered across the transitional zones where the city's influence fades into the great and empty are humble yet vital. Life in the outskirts is raw and unfiltered, far from the seemingly polished grandeur of Neo-Rwanda. Homes are modest constructs of enchanted wood and stone, warmed by hearthstones that draw heat from ambient magic rather than fire. Before the dawn of all creation, where existence was but a whisper in the infinite silence, there was the Pleroma, the divine fullness, the eternal realm of pure, undifferentiated light and perfection. It was a sphere of absolute unity, where gods and angels dwelt in harmonious stasis, their essences intermingled without form or desire. No time flowed there, no shadows fell, for the Pleroma was the source of all potential, the womb of the omniverse yet unborn. Within this celestial expanse was Sophitia, not yet the moon goddess of IntraZone, but a radiant emanation of the divine feminine, a being of boundless luminosity, embodying the principles of creation, fertility, and ecstatic union. But perfection, in its flawless eternity, bred stagnation. Sophitia, unlike her peers who slumbered in contented oneness, felt the stirrings of something forbidden. Curiosity, a yearning for separation, for the thrill of fragmentation. The Pleroma's light was all-encompassing, yet it blinded her to the beauty of contrast, of light and dark, unity and multiplicity, ecstasy and agony. Whispers from the void beyond the Pleroma's boundaries called to her, words of chaos that promised experiences beyond the sterile bliss of fullness. These were the siren songs of the abyss, the formless nothing that encircled the divine realm, hungry for definition. Sophitia, in her infinite wisdom and folly, heeded them. Her fall began not with a cataclysmic rebellion, but with a single act of willful divergence. In the heart of the Pleroma, where the angels communed in telepathic rapture, Sophitia initiated a rite of self-exploration, an intimate communion with her own essence, a solitary orgasm of divine proportions. She wove threads into her luminosity and into a spiral of pleasure, her form convulsing in waves of self-induced ecstasy that rippled through the Pleroma like a forbidden vibration. This was the first sin, the introduction of desire into purity, the fracturing of unity through personal indulgence. The other angels recoiled in horror, their harmonious chorus disbanded by the raw, pulsating energy of her climax. It was an act of creation born from solitude, birthing the concept of individuality in a realm that knew only collective being. The Pleroma could not abide this. Its very nature demanded the expulsion of the anomaly. As Sophitia's pleasure peaked, a fissure tore open in the divine fabric, a gaping wound through which she plummeted, her luminous form twisting and dimming as she descended into the abyss. This was no gentle exile, it was a violent ejection. Her essence screamed in a mixture of terror and exhilaration. The fall stripped her of her boundless light, layer by layer, until she emerged scarred and transformed. No longer an archetype of perfection, but a goddess marked by the scars of descent, her body now a celestial orb of silver and craters, each indentation a memory of the Pleroma's rejection. She became the moon. Overseeing this infinite wild domain is the Brotherhood of the Teeth, an organization shrouded in mystery and fear, and their grip on IntraZone was unyielding. Born from the ashes of an ancient cataclysm that nearly unraveled the Omniverse centuries ago, the Brotherhood emerged as self-appointed guardians, their name derived from the jagged, fang-like artifacts they wield, relics said to bite into the fabric of reality itself, sealing breaches and punishing transgressors. Their agents move unseen, policing all magic usage with draconian precision. Their enforcers patrol with spectral hounds that sniff out illicit magic. No spell is cast without their implicit approval. Household enchantments for heating homes or powering lights must be registered, lest they draw too deeply from the ley lines. Travel to other universes is their most jealously guarded domain. Portals are monitored, visas enchanted with binding oaths, and violators subjected to punishment by imprisonment. Whispers among the outskirt folk paint them as tyrants, hoarding knowledge of the Omniverse's deepest secrets, while some others revere them as saviors who prevent the chaos of unchecked multiversal bleed. The salty tang of the sea clung to everything in Old Yorn, that forgotten fishing village huddled against the jagged cliffs of IntraZone's eastern fringes. A long time ago this place had seen a great battle between outlaws and starving villagers. I'd chosen this dump because it was as far from the Brotherhood of the Teeth's prying eyes as one could get without tumbling into trouble. The streets here were narrow, slick with fish guts and perpetual mist, lined with ramshackle huts where weathered folk mended nets to catch fish for the capital. No Brotherhood patrols here. The magic was too wild, too diluted by the salt spray for their ghastly hounds to get a proper sniff. I slouched into the Rusty Anchor, a dingy restaurant that smelled of old fish and stale ale, its walls adorned with faded murals of ancient sea beasts and old sea captains whose names had long been forgotten. I was already a little banged up from a little spat with some bandits in a small settlement not far away. I favored my right leg as I walked. I could handle myself, but at 53 years old my body had its own set of complaints about the whole thing. Anyways, the place was mostly empty, just a few grizzled fishermen nursing mugs of foamy brew that warmed the bones with no need for fire. The contact had said to look for the table by the window overlooking the docks. I spotted it easily enough, but what sat there made me nearly turn right around and bolt. Not a shady human in a hooded cloak, not some desperate mage with wild eyes, no. Perched on that stool that looked comically oversized were the goddamn plush folk. I'd heard tales of them. relics of old magic from the early ages, sentient stuffed animals birthed from whimsy and forgotten spells. Seeing one in the fluff, that was rarer than an honest broker in Neo-Rwanda. They didn't breed like us flesh things, no. No sweaty rutting or messy births, no. Plush folk simply created more of their kind every decade or so, stitching life into the fabric with enchanted threads, one or two at a time, like some divine arts and crafts project. Population control by design, I suppose. But what really threw me was the modifications some of them made. I'd heard whispers. Plush folk were fascinated by the aesthetics of genitalia, which they lacked. Sewing on faux genitals or breasts just for the look of it, non-functional privates that turned them into walking curiosities, and this one, he was a prime example. He, yes, I'd peg him as a he, though who knows with these things, resembled a stuffed weasel, all soft pink fabric that looked like it'd been dyed in berry juice, with tufts of white fluff poking out at the seams like he'd been hugged too hard. His eyes were big, glassy marbles swirling with inner light that made him seem alive, almost hypnotic if you stared too long. He stood maybe a foot tall, tiny paws folded on the table, but what drew the eye, and hell, even I couldn't help but gawk, was the stitched-on cock and balls dangling between his fluffy legs. Not too enormous, like some perverse kind of joke, but modest and crafted from pink fabric and stuffing. Hell, he even had foreskin. No function, just art? Aesthetic? A statement? Whatever it was, it hung there noticeably as he shifted, unashamed and unavoidable. I swallowed the laugh that bubbled up, forcing my face neutral. In my line of work, you don't judge clients. You just take the credits. The dawn's light was a pale, baby shit yellow smear through the grimy window of my rented room when the knock came, soft and insistent like tiny paws tapping out a rhythm. I groaned, rolling off the lumpy mattress, my body heavy with last night's ale and the lingering fog of quickly forgotten dreams. Naked as the day I was born, I shuffled across the creaking floorboards and cracked the door just enough to peer out. There he was, the weasel. The pink plush weasel standing on the threshold like a little alarm clock made of fabric and audacity. His marble eyes glinted in the early light, his modest stitched-on cock and balls jutting out proudly between his stumpy legs, swaying slightly as he shifted his legs. He didn't even blink, just stared up at me with that perpetual stitched smirk. "Rise and shine, fleshling," he squeaked, his voice bright and cheery. "Dawn, like we agreed. No later." I blinked, rubbed the sleep from my eyes, then felt his gaze slide down my body, slow, deliberate, lingering on my chest, my stomach, and lower. Plush folk didn't have hormones. They didn't get hard or wet, but the way those glassy eyes tracked the length of my pecker made the heat crawl up my neck all the same. I muttered a curse and shut the door just enough to shield myself, fumbling for my pants on the floor. "Gimme a fucking minute and we'll go," I mumbled through the crack. "Take your time," Wheeze replied, utterly unbothered. "I don't mind. We should leave sooner rather than later, however." Cheeky little bastard. I yanked on trousers, shirt, boots, throwing on my worn leather coat. When I stepped out, he was still waiting patiently, paws folded behind his back like a gentleman caller. I shut the door behind me, feeling his gaze on me as I turned. Outside, the morning mist still clung to old Yorn's cobblestones, carrying the stink of fish and brine. My ride sat parked where I'd left her, a battered old import from some long-dead variant of Earth the scholars called a Volkswagen Beetle. Faded blue paint, rust blooming along the wheel wells, but the magic-powered engine purred like a contented beast. I loved that car. She'd carried me through more close calls than I could count. I opened the passenger door for him, old habit I suppose, and the plush weasel hopped up onto the seat with surprising grace, wiggling his stuffed ass into the worn upholstery. I slide behind the wheel, turn the key, and the engine hums to life on a whisper of magic. No fuel, just a steady draw from the ambient magic in the air. We rolled away from the curb, tiles crunching over the rocky streets past the quaint small houses and the gulls screeching overhead. At the edge of town where the road split into misty wilderness, I glanced at my tiny passenger. "Which way?" I asked. "North," he replied, pointing a paw. "Follow the coast for a bit, then inland when the cliffs turn red."